Hello again. A little bit of technical difficulty. The camcorder shut off by itself, or as we lawyers would say, sua sponte, in mid-sentence. So rather than re-record the entire 13 minutes that I had already put up online, I decided we would just start again. So now you have a part 2 and a part 1 to this introductory lecture. We will, over the next 5 weeks, be fairly busy. You will have a quiz due beginning next week. I'll hand out the first quiz. It will be due a week later. The first brief, D'Agostino, is due next week. And there will be a quiz and a brief due every single week leading right up to the end. The last week, on August 4th and August 6th. On August 4th, I will give you your final exam. It will be due back by the close of business on August 7th. And you will still on August 6th have your fifth and last brief due. So it's a fairly intense schedule. Things are going to fly by quickly. I know it's summer. I know we've all been locked up in our houses for 3.5 months, so we're happily trying to get out and do other things, but try not to fall behind. For those of you who have not briefed a case before, and I know many of you have because you've been in other law courses or you've taken the legal writing course, so you know what to do. In the section of handouts on Blackboard, I have put a document called Briefing a Case, which is a very simple, bare bones list of what things I'm looking for in a brief. Now, first and foremost, the whole point of a brief is to be brief. It's supposed to be a summary of the case, which a paralegal or a younger attorney, junior attorney, would write up for a senior attorney, so the senior attorney didn't have to read through all the ins and outs and ups and downs of the entire case. So with D'Agostino, I think I've given you a case that's 5.5 pages long. You should not end up with a 6-page brief. I'm basically looking for a 1.5 pages to 2 pages single spaced. There may be a couple of cases might be complicated enough that you would go a little bit over, but if you end up coming up with 4 pages as a brief out of a 5-page case, you're putting too much into it. You need to go back and edit either the facts or some of the reasoning or some of the travel of the case, because what we want is to try and get to a point where you can look at a case, figure out why it's important, figure out what it's saying, and give a concise summary of that somebody else could read and say, oh, all right, now I understand what that case is about. Okay, in your brief, some of the things you need to include, and some of these are very simple. You need the case name. At the very top, Smith versus Jones. You need what's called the citation, which is the reference number that allows us to get onto the internet or to get into the law books and find the case. A reference number could be something like 452 Rhode Island 253, which tells us the volume of the Rhode Island Supreme Court reports that it's in and the page that it begins at. It could be Atlantic 3rd, 254 Atlantic 3rd, page 4302. Which is part of the West Publishing System, where they catalog the cases and they outline them and they put copies of the case filings in books and now on the internet in a way you can find them. But the citation is important because without it we cannot find that exact case. There are many cases in the world that if you look at the caption, they have the same name as other cases. So we only know if we have the absolute right reference if we have the name plus the citation. The year decided. For a lawyer, this is always important because even though we talk about stare decisis and the court always following the old cases, courts do change. Things do change over time, and one of the things that a lawyer is very interested in is how recent or how old is a case. So right in the beginning, as part of your citation and the course name, put the year that's decided. Now comes the part where you have to do some writing and some thinking and deciding. First thing you need is to list the important facts. My evidence professor first year of law school repeated to the point where we were sick of hearing it, that facts are your friends. Every lawsuit is an argument between two people. It is a dispute. And the way we resolve this dispute is, number one, by determining what are the facts of the dispute, and then number two, applying the law to the dispute. And so without the facts, we can't really understand the importance of the case, because the case is only relevant, the finding, the ruling, the law applied is only relevant in terms of the actual facts of that particular case. Every case presents a question. That question is the issue. So after you have summarized the facts, the next thing is to try and determine what is the question that's being asked. What is the question that these litigants are arguing over that they're requiring now the court to provide an answer to? So we need to, as concisely as we can, state the issue. The decision. Right? The decision is, what did the court ultimately do with the case? And now I know many people get decision and holding confused, and I have to admit, even among us law professors, we sometimes label these differently, so we make it confusing for you. For my purposes, the decision is what ultimately happened with the case. And this would usually be one of the very last things that the court does before you get to the dissenting opinions. So it would be, the case is affirmed, the decision of the lower court stands, the case is overruled, which means that the lower court decision falls, the case is remanded for further hearings. So there are a number of different things that the court can do in terms of ultimately what happens with this case. The holding is the answer to the issues. And in it, we should talk about what law did they apply, did they change the law, how did they answer the question. And then the significance is sometimes stated by the judges themselves, but sometimes it's only implied, and you kind of have to think about it and decide for yourself, why would this be important? Why did this get all the way to the Supreme Court of the state or the Supreme Court of the United States to require a decision? Did this change the law? Did this add something, take something away from the law? What is the general importance to everyday people of this? So use that. If those of you who haven't briefed before, I'm perfectly willing to accept your briefs if you send them in early, to grade them, to write comments, not to grade them, but to write comments and send them back to you so you can redo them in hopes that your grade will come up from what it would have been. If you go online, just Google briefing a case. A number of things will pop up that will actually give you sample briefs and will set up an outline similar to the one that I've given you. I, of course, would prefer that you use my own, but if you can present me, make a copy of me and say, well, Mr. Walsh, I found this brief type of outline on Google, and this is what I used, I will accept that also. Okay, I think that pretty much sums up what I want to do by way of introduction. Again, make sure you check out Blackboard. You should particularly be looking at the administration section, look at the syllabus, look at the calendar. You should be looking at the handout section, because I believe all the handouts I have posted there right now have to do with our first lecture here in the first week. And I have posted 4 or 5 of my topic note items. Basically, you should be looking at number 1, and we'll be going over number 1 later today. I'm now filming this on Thursday, July 2nd, and we'll be moving into certainly 2 and 3 by next week, and possibly even number 4. If you have any questions, email me at either email. That's usually the best way to get a hold of me. You can call me on my cell phone. At the moment, I am working from home because of COVID, so my cell phone has become the be-all and end-all for my clients, my family, my friends, and also my students. So if I don't get back to you immediately, please do not get upset. I will answer you. I will return your call, but it may take a little bit of time. All right, with that, I am done with the introduction. The next video that I present and put up will be a substantive video. It will be the lecture to go with handout number 1 and with the first week's items in the course. Looking forward to seeing all of you at the online meeting.